welcome. If this is your first time, you know, um, hearing about Walter Russell, we are going to talk about um, Walter Russell and his both science and philosophy concepts. I'll just start it by saying that you may not have heard of Walter Russell, but he was alive in the late 1800s and through 19 I think it was 1963 maybe when he passed away. You know, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the general time frame that Walter Russell was alive, and he left this legacy of all these books of science and philosophy that are pretty incredible. And on my YouTube channel, 3D Frequency, I primarily discuss his science. He definitely had a philosophy as well. So I would urge you guys to go check out the University of Science and Philosophy. You can learn more about Walter Russell there and his philosophy. But today, we're gonna, this channel is about his science. Keep in mind, all of this science is written down in books. I'm gonna share my screen. So I'll start with, I just did it's just a Google search. One the his first major release in book form was a book called The Universal One. This is written, I think, and published back in 1926. And this is primarily, I mean, like this book is so incredible. It goes into such detail and depth of theoretical physics of our universe. And it definitely is a different way of looking at things than our traditional science has, come up with. And the reason why it's so unique is because Walter Russell, the way he described it was that he would get these visions and he would kind of go into this state that he called it an illumination, where he would essentially, he kind of described it as like his mind became one with God's mind and received this information, just like, like a straight download from God's mind to his mind. And he was told to write it down into books and share it with the world and the whole human race. And so that's exactly what he did. He proceeded to write, and so lo and behold, now he's got, a bunch of science books that he wrote, and they are now published. And I just want to say that a lot of people hear that story about how he went through this illumination and they might think, "Oh, well, that sounds like some woo-woo stuff, or just like I don't believe in that." And I can sympathize with someone being skeptical. However, the fact remains that regardless of whether you believe he had this out of body experience or not, the fact is he did write these books, okay? And whether or not you believe they came from a higher power or not, or if they just came from his own brain, the fact of the matter is these books are real. They're like, I have the copy of the Universal One right here. And he's written down chapter after chapter of amazing, intelligent, theoretical physics that I believe if more people studied it and learned it, the whole human race would be better because it's just like super advanced, and it's a totally different way of thinking about the structure of the universe. Now, let's see. In a nutshell, um, I would say that he believes that the entire universe that we perceive with our senses is all made out of light or energy. Um, and once you look at things in that manner, there is, as he describes, it's this light, this energy or this light. it can't be destroyed, and it's just in motion. Okay. So, and this motion is very important because different types of motion give different types of effects that we see with our senses. Walter was an incredible artist, incredibly talented artist. And I'm going to share my screen again here because to kind of show some of the diagrams, that are in his books, Universal One diagrams. I'm just going to go ahead and go to like some of the images from this book that I could show you. Let's see. Well, this is actually from another book of his, but that's his periodic table. Um, this is one where he is describing crystallization, which is incredible. He. Oh, you know what? I'm realizing there's an easier way. I have all these have all these diagrams in my pictures here. I'm going to actually, now these diagrams that I'm kind of quickly going through are from various books of his. But just to kind of show you guys like the level of, the amazing artist that he was, here is just a few examples that he, would draw to kind of give you an idea and to kind of help you understand it. Here's one where he's explaining ionization. Let's see what else. Right. This is one where he's talking about his concept of a cubic wave field, which is one of the advanced concepts in his science. Um, and anyway, so I hope like look at this. I mean, that's just like a pretty awesome example. This guy drew this freehand, you know, and so anyway, but my point is like not only is his concept incredible, he was just also this amazing artist, so he was able to draw to show you, these concepts. So I would highly recommend that everyone, read the Universal One, or at least find one of the books that he has, like The Secret of Light, or A New Concept of the Universe. There's and you can go. There should be a link. I'll put a link to the University of Science and Philosophy where you can go and purchase. You can browse all the books and purchase ones that you like. So, all right, I'll get out of that for now. I'm going to read an example of from the Universal One, because this is essentially our introduction to this playlist, which is going to be the 18 dimensions of motion, where our members here in the Russell Science Mastermind, we discussed these 18 dimensions of motion, and for those of you who are new, um, there's a concept in Walter's philosophy and science that a way you could describe our universe is that it's almost like two universes. In one universe, it's the one that we're all familiar with, that we see with our senses. We, our five senses. We we see motion, we see objects. When you look out into space, what do we see? We see stars and blackness in between the stars. Okay. And so this is the universe that Walter would call the universe of motion, where it's light in motion, because that's what we see when we look out. All we see are stars. Stars are, it's light, and they're in motion, right? They're spinning around their galaxies. When a star is born and grows to maturity and then starts to die, eventually, it fizzles out, if you were like it essentially will go to death by radiating out and until the motion of that star is gone. And so this non-motion is the second universe where if there's no motion, then there are no dimensions. There's no time. Everything is infinite. There's no space. Everything is, infinite. And this universe of the absolute still non-motion is what he calls the mind of God. And so and it's kind of like those two universes are what create our one universe. It's the timeless, infinite, non-moving mind of God that, and then there's the moving universe of light, okay, of all the things that we see moving around. And so let's see. That's the universe of motion. So that's kind of his general concept of like what the whole universe is. It's either light in motion or it's light that is absolutely not moving. And so I'm going to read here from the Universal One. It's chapter 13, entitled A Dimensionless Universe. Universal mind thinks in light and registers that thinking in light, which is integrated into the idea of the thinking and suspended for a time in the lower octaves of light in the appearance of form. Man's outer mind is an integration of light in the lower octaves of that which he calls matter. And man's outer mind thinks in the dimensions or illusions of mind or matter. Matter and mind and light and energy are the same. They are one. I just want to pause there and say, because kind of in traditional science, we have the concept of energy and we think, oh, well, energy can't be created or destroyed. Like, it's always there, but it's just in kind of different forms in terms of like, an atom might have a higher energy level than, or well, let's see, this goes to kind of the traditional science concept of like the atom, okay, where you have a nucleus and then you have like, electrons going around the nucleus. But the point there is like those electrons can be in different excited states. They can have, more or less energy, right? And so that's kind of the bridge where here to Russell's concept, because people are familiar with the term energy, but Russell uses the term light. So this sentence, I want to just read it again and I'll continue. But he says matter and mind and light and energy are are the same. They are one. Okay. So Russell's big about the whole universe that we perceive with our senses. It's all just one substance. It's all just energy. It's all just light. Now he calls it light. He uses the term light more than he'll use the term energy. Okay. But it's all the same thing. Okay. So I'll continue here. So they're all one. They are existent in that they never disappear. They are constant. They are eternal. Dimension of mind or light or matter or energy is but the illusion of the mind substance due solely to more or less sustained motion. Let me just reiterate that. He's essentially saying here, even though everything is made out of the same stuff, we see a bunch of different things like that tree over there or that rose or that automobile or that skyscraper. We're seeing all these different things, but it's the same. All of them are the same substance. The only thing that's different about them that makes them look different to our senses is the fact that they are in different types of motion. Okay. Like you can think of water, you might experience it as a liquid. You might experience it as steam, or you might experience it as ice, solid, liquid, or gas. It's all still the same substance. It's water, but it's in different states of motion. It's slower when it's ice, it's faster when it's water, and it's even faster when it's steam. Okay. So that's, you know, I guess a simple idea to kind of make you guys see that things can be the same substance, but they can look and feel differently to our senses just because of the difference of motion. Solid ice is cold, whereas a gaseous steam is hot, right? So we see these different things, and but if we realize Walter's concept, it's all the same substance of light, but it's just in different states of motion. And so knowing that motion is that important, Walter Russell set out to measure this motion. How can we measure this motion that's so important? And he came up with 18 dimensions of a way to measure this motion. And so, anyway, more on that. Let me just finish reading this short rest of this paragraph here. He said that matter and mind and light and energy are all the same. They're all one, and they're constant. They're eternal. And dimension of mind or light or matter or energy is but the illusion of the mind substance due solely to more or less sustained motion. The substance, which is mind or light or matter or energy, and is eternally existent as cause, must not be confused with its effects in motion, which are but dimensions and therefore non existent. Dimension is purely objective. Outer mind thinking is objective thinking. Objective thinking is thinking in dimension. The substance of matter is eternal, but its illusions of dimension in form are fleeting. Okay, so we'll stop there. I could keep reading, but because this book is incredible, I think everyone should go and purchase a copy of this book and read it. Okay, because it will blow your mind, like guaranteed. um, okay, so that was just a little kind of um excerpt from the Universal One, and the importance here is that for you guys who have never encountered Walter Russell before, that this is part of his concept that everything is made out of energy, or everything is made out of light in motion. And so it's very important that we understand this motion. And so how do we understand things? We observe them, we measure them, we can get the length, the width, the breadth, and these are all different dimensions that are measurable. When we say dimensions, we don't mean like a parallel dimension, like in the comic books or whatever. We mean like literally things that we can experience with our senses and measure them. And once you can do that, once you can measure things, you can build up a science, and we can understand how things, how this universe works, right? So I'm going to list for you what the 18 dimensions are in Russell's concept here. He says these are the dimensions which, when known and measured, will make man master, in that he will be able to evolve or devolve or transmute or synthesize the elements at will, which is mind blowing. You see how I just dropped that? He said we can do transmutation at will, if we understand these motions, these dimensions. Okay, so the dimensions are, and there's 18 of them, so I'm going to go through the list here. The first dimension is length. The second, breadth. The third, thickness. The fourth, duration or time. The fifth, sex. The sixth, pressures. The seventh, potentials. The eighth, temperature. The ninth, ionization. The 10th, crystallization. The 11th, valence. The 12th, axial rotation. The 13th, orbital revolution. The 14th, mass. The 15th, color, the 16th plane, the 17th tone, and the 18th ecliptic. Okay. Um, these dimensions are characterized by one outstanding peculiarity common to all of them, an orderly periodicity. Beyond these 18 dimensions and their inclusions, there are no more measurable intervals of motion. When all of these periodicities are charted and their mathematical calculations computed with exactness, it will be very simple for the ingenuity of man to devise the mechanical apparatus necessary to decrease any high potential into any lower one, or increase any low potential into any higher one. Acceleration and deceleration are now measurable. Temperature, tone, color, valence, ionization, and those pressures which are known are now measured. Mass is measurable. All right, let me stop there. So those are the 18 dimensions of motion, and some of them are make sense to kind of traditional science, like length and breadth and thickness and time. But some of them are totally new. Okay, like sex or let's see, maybe plane, there or potentials. These are some of the things that he chose to describe motion. And so as you go through this playlist of all these 18 dimensions, we're going to discuss each one of these in detail. So I hope that you guys are for those of you that are interested in Walter's concept. If you really want to know it, then you really need to go through this and learn kind of what the dimensions are, because this is what is the most important in his concept. These dimensions of motion will really describe in a rigorous, mathematical way how the universe works. And it takes it from the whole kind of woo-woo things that you might have heard about Walter Russell. Because if you do a search for Walter Russell online, it'd be very easy to think, oh, he's just some new agey woo-woo guy. Okay. But it's not until you really read his material that you find out, wait, there's way more. There's actually something real going on here, like scientifically measurable, mathematical, rigorous structure. And if you go through this playlist and learn about these dimensions of motion, it will really open your eyes to how significant Russell's concept is, and how it will allow us to do way more than our current traditional science. Like, we are literally at the infancy of science with what we can do. Even though we've done so many incredible things with science, when you guys understand what Walter's concept is, you're gonna see we're just at the very beginning, dude. We're babies in science right now. All right, guys, thank you so much. That's it, and enjoy the playlist. Peace.